Hi there. It's October the 19th and we're continuing our progress through the prophecies of Jeremiah, in Hebrew Yirmiyahu, meaning the Lord appoints or the Lord establishes. And we're looking at chapters 33 and 34. And in chapter 33 we find that Jeremiah is still in prison, and the word of the Lord comes to him a second time and actually says to him, "If you call on me, I will answer and I will tell you the secrets of my heart." And he says that the Lord says to Jeremiah that Babylon, even though they're attacking, they're going to face retribution. They're going to themselves have the tables turned on them. And actually Jerusalem is going to be restored. Jerusalem is going to be rebuilt. And there's going to be forgiveness for the nation of Israel. God promises pardon. He promises joy and blessing. In the midst of this terrible time, God is promising that it will not be like this. In fact, he says they will hear again the voice of the bride and the bridegroom. There will be partying, there will be rejoicing, there will be the beginnings of new families again. They'll sing again the ancient refrain of Israel, "Give thanks to the Lord, for he's good, for his covenant grace lasts forever." Shepherds will return. There will again be the safety for flocks to be around the area of Jerusalem. And then there's a reference to what God is going to establish, which is the continuation of the Davidic line. And he calls this the faithful branch, the branch of David, the faithful branch. It's the Tzemach Tzedakah, the branch of righteousness. And again, the Lord will be known as Adonai Tzidkenu, the Lord our righteousness. So this word righteousness is about integrity, it's about equity, it's about right relationship. And God is intending to restore that, along with restoration of the priesthood. The priests again will serve in the temple. And the Lord seals it by saying in verse 20 that if the covenant with day and night can be broken, then my covenant with Israel can be broken. In other words, what he's saying is you can't stop the sun rising and setting. And in the same way I have made my commitment to bring up the sun, my pact to bring up the sun and to let it set, so my commitment to Israel and to Judah will not fail. And in fact he talks about both sections, Israel and Judah. He talks about both parts of the nation, and he talks about his promises to Abraham, Isaac and Jacob at the end of the chapter, that this is to fulfill the words that he spoke to the patriarchs. God is determined, even though Babylon is attacking, God is determined to fulfill his covenant. And in chapter 34, they are in the midst of the attack now of Babylon. They're coming against them, and the word of the Lord through Jeremiah is to Zedekiah the king, saying that Jerusalem is going to be burned, that Jerusalem is destined to be brought down. Zedekiah himself is going to be seized and he's going to be taken, but Jeremiah says you won't be killed, you will actually see the king of Babylon face to face. There's also the amazing word that comes through Jeremiah for the Jews to release their fellow Hebrews who they've made slaves. There was a practice of enslaving fellow Jews if they couldn't pay their debts, if they owed, so they would work out their debts by being enslaved. And the word from the Lord comes through Jeremiah that in this situation of being under attack and being under siege, that the Hebrew slaves should be freed. And so initially the people who have slaves who are Jews free them, but then they find ways of getting them back again and they re-enslave them. And this provokes the Lord's anger. God is really angry that having called for the people to be released, they're now being re-enslaved. And God said, didn't I, as the one who set you free from Egypt, didn't I set you free? Have you not been freed by me? So why are you holding slaves who you are holding to yourself when I've told you to set them free? And God says that this is a breaking again of the covenant, of the commitment that they've made to God. And there's an interesting reference just at the end of chapter 34, towards the end of chapter 34, to the practice of covenant, because it talks about those who pass between the halves of the calf. And that seems a strange reference until we understand that, as we saw way back in Genesis 15, the practice of taking an animal and sacrificing it and dividing it down the backbone and then laying the halves of the animal one against the other was the way of practicing covenant. You would then stand in between the two halves of the animal and make the promises of covenant. And so the Lord has said that Israel and Judah have passed between the halves of the calf. They've made covenant, they've committed themselves to God, but they've not kept to that covenant. They've broken the terms of the covenant that was made, and therefore judgment is coming. And they are going to they're going to not, because of their having enslaved again the Hebrews, they are also going to find themselves in a place of being captive when Babylon comes in. These chapters are very serious chapters. They're chapters both of promise and chapters of judgment. But the one thing that we can hold on to in the midst of it is that God is true to his covenant. God will not go against his own covenant. Just as the covenant with the day and night, God is true to the word that he speaks, just as sure as the sun rises. We are included in covenant with God through Jesus, through Messiah, through his death and resurrection. We are part of his people. And we can also join in that ancient song, that ancient refrain, give thanks to the Lord, he's good, his covenant grace is unlimited. Have a very good October 19th.